What's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you don't know me, my name is Justin and I'm an M3 at the Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine. It's been over 2 years since I've started medical school now, but I can still remember my very first day. I was excited, I was nervous, and honestly there was so much emotion because, like many of you, I had been working towards this moment for so long, and of course I wanted to do well. And that mix of anxiety and excitement meant that I had 5 different study plans, 5 different Anki decks, joined like 13 different interest groups, and somehow found myself running for class officer. And by the end of that week, I was more confused, exhausted, and overwhelmed than when I first started. So if you're feeling anxious, that's totally normal. I'm going to tell you exactly what I wish I knew when I first started med school so that you can crush your first year without losing your mind. As a fresh M3, I find advice from residents and interns super helpful because they were just in my shoes, so hopefully I can pass some good advice on to you guys as well. And if you aren't already subscribed, please consider hitting that subscribe button down below. It really just helps the channel out. And leave a comment as well. There's only so much I can cover in one video, so if you guys have more questions, let me know, and then hopefully I can make more content in the future. The first thing that I wish I knew is that medical school is a pancake-eating marathon. And I can confidently say that because although I do not eat pancakes every day, I did run a marathon my first year of med school, and let me tell you, I learned a lot. A lot of you guys probably took gap years, and that's totally fine. It just means you're not used to studying all day. And even if you didn't, the sheer amount of content in med school means you're gonna have to approach things a little bit differently than undergrad. So back to the pancake analogy. Med school is like eating 10 pancakes a day, every day, for 4 years straight. Now don't get me wrong, I am a pancake lover myself. They are my go-to breakfast food, especially when you can sneak some protein in. But no matter how much you love pancakes, eating 10 every single day is not easy nor fun, especially when you're on your 564th pancake. So your first 10 pancakes of med school might be, let's say, thyroid flavored. Yum. You're learning about normal physiology, pathology, imaging, anatomy, and it's going great. You chomp down those pancakes, no problem. But then the next day, they serve you 10 adrenal gland flavored pancakes. And then the next day, they serve you 10 pituitary gland pancakes, and so on, and so on, and so on. When I first started med school, I treated this marathon like a sprint. I was doing so many new Anki cards a day, going to in-person lectures, watching third-party resources, attending every organizational meeting I could. And honestly, it was fine at first, but eventually it does catch up to you. I started to feel overwhelmed, and honestly, I didn't know how I was going to keep up with all of this material that was being thrown at me. And if you're feeling the same way, don't worry, it's totally normal to feel like that. Because how can you possibly keep up with all of the stuff that you're supposed to know in med school? Well, that leads perfectly into my second point. The second thing that I wish I knew when I first started was that Anki is king. So Anki is, let's just say, a polarizing topic for medical students. Some people love it, some people hate it, and some people just do it to do it. But I can confidently say that Anki was one of the most important resources for me in my preclinical years. So my school gave us about a 6-week dedicated study period to prep for step 1 at the end of my second year, but I only ended up using 5 days out of those 6 weeks to study, which meant I had 5 weeks of free time between the end of my second year and the start of clinical rotations. I got to take a break from studying before starting clerkships. I spent a lot of time with friends and family, and I even got to go to Japan, which had been on my bucket list for so long. And I attribute being able to do a lot of that to Anki. As a third-year medical student, I am still using Anki, and for my OB-GYN shelf, I think it really did help me honor. So what exactly is Anki? Well, for those who don't know, Anki is a spaced repetition flashcard app. So let me give you guys a couple of examples. Let me just pull my Anki up. Okay, so this card says, what is the most common cause of meningitis in neonates? And the answer to that is group B streptococcus, which is a fact that I learned over a year ago now watching Sketchy Micro. And Anki is the only reason I hadn't forgotten that. So let me give you guys another example. This card says a murmur due to blank radiates to the axilla. And the answer to that is mitral regurgitation, which again is a fact that I learned all the way back in my first year of medical school. So let's go back to the pancake analogy. We've already eaten our thyroid, adrenal, and pituitary gland pancakes, but there's so much more to know about endocrinology, and at my school, this block also included male and female repro. Anki helps you remember the thyroid gland, even when you're busy learning about things like the LH surge or PCOS weeks later. I mean, after all, your exam is going to be covering all of this stuff, and you're probably going to want to retain at least some of your endocrine knowledge, even when you're learning about cardio and renal months later, or immunology and psych a literal year later, because all of this stuff comes back to haunt you when you're studying for step 1. The biggest reason I have seen people fall off the Anki train is because there are simply too many cards. I think there's something crazy like 30,000 cards just for the step 1 tag alone. But here's the secret. Most medical schools are pass-fail now, and step 1 is definitely pass-fail, so you don't need all of these cards to succeed. So here's my practical advice. Limit your new cards to 100 a day. Remember, this is a marathon, not a sprint, so if you really feel like you can handle more, you can always increase that in the future. Next, go to the step 1 tag, find the high yield and relatively high yield tags, and flag all of those cards a certain color. Those are the cards that you're really going to want to focus on. Next, make sure that you have FSRS enabled. It's the new scheduling system that's built into Anki now, and if you want more information, the Anki has a really good video on what FSRS is and how to best optimize your settings. My next piece of advice is very simple. Do your cards every single day. Do them while you're on the treadmill, do them while you're standing in line ordering lunch, do them with an Anki remote in a study room. It really doesn't matter as long as you get them done. It's a hard pill to swallow, but also don't just memorize words. So here's a good tip. My fiance would sometimes help me out and read cards out loud to me, and sometimes she would ask follow-up questions like what certain things meant or what certain cards meant. And if I couldn't explain it to her, that just meant I was memorizing words and not understanding concepts. So if you can't teach something, you don't know it. So just ask yourself, if a friend asked you to explain more about a certain card and you really couldn't, that just means you're memorizing words. And that brings me to my last point on this. Anki is a reviewing tool, not a learning tool. You actually have to understand something before you can do a flashcard on it, and that means watching Boards and Beyond, Boot Camp, Sketchy, Pathoma, or whatever you want to watch before doing flashcards on a certain topic. But wait, what's Boards and Beyond? What's Boot Camp? What's Sketchy? What is all of this stuff? Well, that leads me into my next point. There are so many different resources that you can use to learn nowadays, and honestly, that can lead to some choice paralysis. Everyone in med school is different, so these first few weeks should be about learning how to learn and finding out which tools help you learn best. Personally, I was never really a lecture goer, and even if I was, I would probably just wait till later so I could watch it on 2x speed. Now, the resources that I mentioned earlier are third-party resources that are more focused on boards prep and step 1. In my opinion, I think these resources are more concise and more efficient ways to learn the material, and if I need more detail, I can always watch the school's lecture on it later. Now, obviously, this is very school dependent. If you go to a school that tests heavily on lecture material, obviously you're gonna have to wait on these third-party resources and focus more on your school's lectures. Now, like I said, resource overload can often lead to choice paralysis, and I don't want to feed too much into that, but I'm gonna let you guys know exactly what I use to study, just so that you guys have an understanding of what worked for me. So let's start with physiology. I personally use both Boot Camp and Boards and Beyond, but if I had to choose one, I would probably just go with Boot Camp. Their videos are just a little bit more stimulating for my tiny little brain, and I think it's a little bit more of a comprehensive resource compared to Boards and Beyond. Even if you don't like textbooks, I would recommend giving Costanzo's Physiology a chance. This was the first time I have ever enjoyed a textbook. I would never use textbooks in undergrad, so definitely give it a try for cardio, renal, and palm especially. So for pathology, you could continue to use Boot Camp if you wanted. Like I said, it's supposed to be a comprehensive resource. But personally, I really liked Pathoma. I felt like it was a lot more concise and efficient in teaching the material, and Dr. Sitar is just the GOAT. I already talked about it a little bit earlier, but Sketchy is also a must-do, especially for microbiology. I personally also really liked it for pharmacology, and it's one of the only reasons I know about any drugs while in the hospital and clinic. And lastly, this is something I didn't do enough of my first year, is practice questions. If Anki is supposed to help you retain the information that you learn, practice questions are how you learn to apply that material to actual questions. The most popular option here is probably Amboss. I would save UWorld for when you're actually studying for step 1. I know that was a lot, and I probably made resource overload even worse for you, so if you want to keep it simple, you could probably just start with Boot Camp. This is not sponsored, but bootcamp is supposed to be a comprehensive resource, so we should cover everything from physiology to pathology to pharmacology. Like I said, this is not sponsored, but for some reason, if bootcamp you are watching this, let me know and we can have a talk. The fourth thing, and probably most important thing I wish I knew, is that your mental health matters. And two things pop into my head immediately when I say that: imposter syndrome and burnout. Obviously, I can't fit all of my thoughts about these two things in one video, so I'll keep it short. So let's start with imposter syndrome. Everybody feels it. I remember one of my first ever small group sessions at Case being this histopathology session. And we had 8 different first-year students and 2 second-year TAs, and we were looking at a slide of the liver or something crazy, and basically the TAs would ask us questions. There was a module that we were doing, there was this pre-reading that we had to do, and I was just so overwhelmed because my classmates were so smart, and they were answering all of these questions, asking good follow-ups. Meanwhile, I was struggling to even read paragraphs when we would go around in a circle and read. Like, I remember I didn't know how to pronounce liquefactive necrosis. I stuttered on that word like 4 times, and I was just so embarrassed. I felt so out of place, and my imposter syndrome was at an all-time high. I also love group studying. I remember studying for my first ever exam with my friends and just being in awe with how much they knew that I didn't know. It was very easy to compare myself to them, and it made me think, like, do I even really belong here with all of these smart people? But something that really helped me is remembering that your school chose you for a reason. Someone read your application and wanted you to be here. Someone interviewed you and wanted you to be here. You've put in the work, you belong. This is a normal feeling, and honestly, it really never goes away. I feel this way every day when I walk into the clinic or into the hospital, and I'm on this team as a medical student knowing the least amount of information compared to these interns and residents who are just so much smarter than I am right now. So I wish I had better advice about imposter syndrome, but I really don't. Like I said, it's a normal feeling. Just try your best to believe in yourself, and that goes a long way. So now let's talk about burnout. Eating 10 pancakes every single day is hard. And when you get into the grind of being a medical student, it can be easy to lose yourself in it. I know I felt like a robot a lot of times when I would wake up and do the same exact thing every single day. But if you can tell from my videos, it was also a lot of fun. And I attribute a lot of that to learning how to find fun in the daily mundane of things. Lean on your support systems. They're really here to help you. I know I call my mom whenever I get the chance, and I never pass up the opportunity to watch my favorite shows with my fiance. And last, but certainly not least, make time for things that are important to you and give you energy. You can look back on my vlogs. I'm seeing my friends whenever I have the chance. I'm traveling when I can. And of course, I'm always making it to the gym. Well, almost always making it to the gym for leg day. And real quick, something that I just thought about right now, the 5th thing that I wish I knew was to only commit to extracurriculars that you really love. Because medical school is way too time consuming to be spending time on things that you're not actually passionate about. The last thing you want to do after a long day of studying is work on a research project that you find boring or really didn't want to do in the first place, or attend an organization's event that you really don't care about. As a former pre-med, I know it can feel like you have to do 1,000 things to get into medical school, but I promise you that changes as you become a medical student. For me, you already know what I'm gonna say. I found doc opera to be one of my favorite things in med school. It's silly, but dancing and singing stupid medical school parodies was such an important outlet for me. I think personally, a lot of my free time can be spent consuming things like TikTok and Netflix, and doc opera was one of the few times I was actually able to create instead of consume. And like I said, I think that really gave me energy. And it also kind of explains why I enjoy making these videos for you guys as well. So all of that goes to say, as a medical student, your time is very valuable. Anyways guys, that is it for the video. If you guys enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. I didn't cover everything in depth, so if you have any other questions, leave them down in the comment section below. And like always, I will see you guys in the next one.